Welcome. I am Steve Bell, Connectivity Analyst with Ward's Intelligence, and I'm joined today by Martin Rosell, who's CEO of WirelessCar. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you.
Connectivity. You and I have been in the industry for many years, and connectivity is really now coming into the essence. It's an enabler of so much of what's happening within the industry. How have you seen the change occur, and is it accelerating now more than ever?
Absolutely. I think it's interesting because we worked with connectivity for over 20 years now, but now is the time when we see that it's gone to the level where we actually can use it in a good way. But it's not only about connectivity, because connectivity can be achieved by quite simple means. But how does that connectivity actually go into the car and get the data we need for the right purpose outside the car? And that's where we need to work a lot more with, rather than the connectivity itself.
So one of the aspects that I've seen is that the consumer hasn't really bought into this. I mean, connectivity has been in the vehicle for 26 years plus, right? But the number of active units out there is much less than the number of vehicles that actually have connectivity. So how is that going to change, and how do you and OEMs sort of get the consumer to buy into the connectivity?
It's a good question. And number one, I mean, where the consumer have bought into the connectivity in the past has been, where it has a real purpose or a good value. So, I mean, call center like emergency calls or breakdown calls, that is, of course, a very easy story to sell. But also, like I live in Sweden, we have cold winters like you have here in Detroit. So heating up the engine or cool it down in warmer areas is real value for the consumers as well. But we've never been prepared to pay for that. So it falls back to the business models from the OEMs actually putting how do you include it in the car. And that's been done with fairly short periods of time, like 12 months, and then you need to buy it. But if you look on our big customers in our delivery, they have extended lifetime of these type of services. Like Volvo Cars, it's forever, or 3-4 years, and then you can actually build up a quite substantial fleet of cars connected, where you can harvest the data in a good way. That's the past. In the future, we see with electrification as a good example, 97% of all the electrical vehicles are connected. And there are 3% not, and can easily explain the cases, but we shouldn't go down that story today. So the electrical vehicles, they obviously have a lot more software. They have an obvious good reason, because you want to charge it smart, and then it needs to be connected. You need to have some sort of service to control that. So that's another era, but that also goes into the combustion engines vehicles, of course, because connectivity has changed from that B to C services of heating up or get a delivery of grocery into the trunk or emergency call to be something completely different in the future, where we talk about shared mobility as a good example.
So in my opinion, two things are shifting. One is that you're starting to see the eSIM move into the vehicle, and that gives the OEMs better control over their vehicle in terms of sort of the connectivity going forward, and how they link it to different mobile operators. But the second thing is that there's the application, the mobile application, so the ability to, as you said, to warm your car but do it from a mobile app. Are those the things that really will bridge this gap between, or are there other things?
There are definitely other things, I think. I mean, those are good services, but in my case, why do we shouldn't need an app? Because it's own way of getting things done. We have the data, we have the algorithms, we can create services. Like I've been talking about this for like 10 years and I haven't seen it yet, but hopefully we see it soon. I mean, if I need my car warmed up after work, as a good example, we have all the data to predict that. And just send me a notification or a question. Martin, do you want me to start the heater? Yes or no? I don't need to, pull up a phone and go into the app, find the app, go into it, and down the menu to start the heater. That's old-fashioned. But that will still be relevant, of course. Doesn't matter how you deliver that service. But, with the new era of, the software-defined vehicle, we will, the whole purpose of connectivity is, of course, to upgrade the vehicle. And here is a fantastic use case where you can buy a car 2021. You can actually get features, which are, developed in 2022 or innovated 2023, depending on of course, the configuration of the car and having the right hardware, etc. Because that's another problem. And we know that even with an iPhone, that we switch them every second year because they're getting slow or whatever. So the OEMs need to build in, they need to think forward when it comes to configuration of cars and putting the hardware in there to deliver on the future as well, which is going to be another problem. eSIM, perfectly all right. I mean, we don't need to switch the ECUs or the TCUs because they are 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G. Hopefully, we can fix that with software. So there is a lot of good things for that. But, the over-the-air updates is going to drive this. The more software we get in the car. And, that will also give us an opportunity to harvest the data in the car in a different way and pick that really gold data. Take that to, our big data, hopefully lake, and then process that data to, come up with new good services. And, always get the question, what's the silver bullet in this industry? There is no silver bullet. It's, the breadth and width and height and, what you can provide to the consumers. And you need to do it in a consumer-friendly way, easy to use, and added value for me as a consumer.
So I had the opportunity to talk to the head of VWs Connected Car. And he brought up a couple of things which I thought were kind of interesting. One is, as a user, I've got a 3-bay garage, and I've probably got maybe a 1999 vehicle in there. I may have a 2005 in there, and I may be lucky to have a sort of 2019. But I want to be able to have the same app, the same mechanisms for interfacing to those vehicles. And he was talking about the fact that we tend to sort of look at it as the map, but there's the whole connecting of the different back ends for the different legacy systems onto a platform and being able to enable that. You've been working on that project as well, right?
Yeah. No, but this is one of the biggest problems with OEMs. I mean, they end up with numerous backends because they always start this, shift based on technology shifts. They start to build new again. I mean, if you look on, our oldest customers, Volvo Cars, we've been a customer for 20 years. What we've done, rather than, try to mow the mountain every 7th year, we pick up stones and put in the pocket and walk them every day, which means that, you don't need to build a new backend because you get a new model out there. You need to make sure that you always work with that, with continuous improvements, continuous delivery, continuous innovation, you name it, and, advance like that. And then if you do that, if you have a strategy for that, you can actually deliver the same service to all your cars during that time period. And of course, it will be limited because of how that car is configured and, old technology. If you don't switch the hardware, etc. in it, that's always a limitation. That's going back to my comment earlier on, that now, the OEMs need to think forward. You can't spec a model for what's just available today. You need to think forward and, provide a little bit more memory, more CPU than you necessarily know, at this particular point in time. But it's not easy. But if it was easy, the industry wouldn't need people like me and WirelessCar and all the others working in it. So we will see.
So talking about the future, I mean, I listened into Nokia's presentation about 5G advanced coming in 2025, 6G coming in 2030. So your comment about the OEMs, think that's only like 1 or 2 vehicle cycles in reality, and you're moving from 4G, 5G, 5G advanced, and 6G. You've got mobile edge compute coming that T-Mobile were talking about as well, and what 5G enables there. And then you've also got things like network slicing coming. I mean, how do you see the OEMs coping with all of this change that's coming in addition to what's already happening?
Yeah, it's interesting, and of course it's going to be adding to the complexity, but it is also an opportunity in it. But I mean, going back to I've been with WirelessCar for 14 years, so I've seen many of these shifts, and it's going to be another shift. 4G was promising the solution to everything. 5G will not solve everything. 6G will not solve everything because we advance in what we want and like over the time. We just need to factor it in and do it in the best way. And the more software we produce rather than components in the car, the easier that will be over time. But it will be complex for sure, and we need to think forward, not just think about this model. And that's a built-in process with the OEMs. I mean, they actually do what they know here, and then the car comes out 3 years later. But that's shifting as well to more agile methodologies and work in a different way with this type of problems.
So as you stand here today, are you more or less optimistic in terms of the impact that connectivity is going to have for this industry?
I'm much more optimistic because over the last couple of years, I would say, I've seen the OEMs change in their mentality of starting to work differently. They adopting to agile methodologies, like we helped Volkswagen in Korea to implement SAFE as the way of working, and it's now spreading. It's not only software; it's the whole car going into agile models in the way they make it. That's one thing which needs to happen in the industry. Just shift the mindset and get ready for this massive software explosion in the car. Right. And it takes more than just the software. It takes competence. It takes a very intelligent sourcing strategy, because no one can do this by themselves. So you need to partner. And right now, the big trend is that the OEM want to do everything by themselves. And I'm not thinking about us particularly. I'm thinking about the way that the OEMs have built up their own silos and try to protect them by branding in the infotainment system or head unit and things like that. And we can't see that happen again. Like Edge in the car as a good example, has to be open. I mean, if you go there with your own mindset, you will build silos again. Yeah. So we need to be open on API level from the car, from the back end, and allow co-creation of the innovation and services in the future. That's how we win this battle.
Martin, thank you very much for your time and your insight. Extremely valuable and really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.